you not slide it out? Does it pull out?
I can slide it out for sure.
Okay.
I think that's as far as it goes really well. Can everybody see it?
Yeah, it was okay. I could see it, yeah.
I'm gonna try. There it goes. Okay, yay. Okay, I'm Ruth Owen. I have been teaching piano for 17 years, and I learned, so my degree is not in music because I thought that would be impractical, and I thought I'll never get a job in music. Like, there's too competitive, and I'm not that good, you know. And so I majored in English teaching, and I got all the way up to my first semester senior year and was out in the classroom meeting the class I'd be student teaching in. I'm really bad at classroom management. I love to teach. I really do. I love to teach, but one-on-one is so much more my speed because I'm kind of introverted. And so I went out into that classroom, and luckily that teacher told me that it kind of hurt to watch me teach. So I took the note and I changed my major to English last minute. And I worked as an editor for a year, and I still freelance edit sometimes. And so I have that whole like reading side of me. But when I was 5 years old, what I said I wanted to be when I grew up was a piano teacher because I loved to play the piano. And so I'm here living the dream, and I almost can't believe that I get to do the thing that I wanted to do that long ago. Like, I think it's so fun. And I love kids, and I love the piano, and so it's just perfect. I also compose and arrange a little bit of music, and I like to have my students do that too. So I'll show you, I told Tiffany last month that I would show the app that I use. I don't know how much time we'll have, but I will briefly show you what it is. So, without further ado, teaching and note reading with color. Okay, so raise your hand if you have this, as I say each one, okay? Do you have any kids that really struggle to learn to read notes, sometimes for years? Okay. Yeah. I have one that has been in my studio for 7 years, and she's finally learning to read the notes. She just struggled, and I have some that are like a year in, and they are already pretty fluent, and so I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong with this one girl. Anyway, some kids can only read music in the keys of C, G, or F, and the relative minors, and they struggle a lot anytime there's ledger lines. Okay. Some kids freak out or guess blindly when they see accidentals. Intermediate students don't recognize chord patterns in their music. And even for students progressing normally, sight reading continues to be an intermittent hurdle for years. Like they'll get good, and then you give them harder music, and suddenly they can't read anymore. Have you ever noticed that? You're like, what the heck? You know your notes, I promise. Okay. So there are some challenges of learning to read piano music that I think are beyond other instruments, except for maybe like harp or organ or something. Unlike with many instruments, a single note on the page does not necessarily correspond to a specific finger motion. So I play flute too, like Lisa, and like a B flat is this, always. And you might do something different with your embouchure, but like it's not gonna be sometimes finger 4, and sometimes finger 3, and sometimes left hand, and sometimes right hand on the exact same note on the piano. Oh, you got it out! Wonderful. I couldn't figure out how to do that.
That's so cool. It's got to turn still though. It's
Should we turn
in
it?
the wall.
It won't go anywhere.
Oh, it won't because of the wall.
That's it.
Okay.
Okay. It's a little better.
Unlike with many instruments, pianists are not limited to 1 or 2 notes at a time. I can't tell you how many times I've had a student who's been struggling with notes start like band or orchestra, and suddenly they get a lot better because learning 1 note at a time is so much easier. And then that translates to coming back to piano and, oh, I can read 4 notes at a time, you know. Unlike with most other instruments, pianists are not limited to 1 rhythm at a time. So there's other things to think about, right? They're really complicated. And then once you finally know which notes are where, you start needing to think about key signatures and accidentals and moving hands and more. Now, of course, there's key signatures and stuff in other instruments, but I feel like with piano, they're a little bit more of a hurdle. Okay, there are so many things to think about at once. There's pedaling and technique and all the things, right? Sight reading skills can improve in an ongoing process, but it has many steps. It's not just do you read notes or do you not, which I think some people think it is and it isn't. Okay, you guys are going to have to be patient with me for a minute because I'm going to do something weird. So, I don't know, like 6, 7 years ago, my husband and I thought we would get some, because all of our kids are really musical and really like to, they all have an instrument or two. And we saw a rock band set, like you know the old game on the Wii, and it has like the drums and the guitar and the microphone. And we thought, oh, they'll love this. We got it for them for Christmas. And mostly they didn't play with it, but after they go to bed, my husband and I would rock out on Rock Band. He has always wanted to learn an instrument, I think. And when he was a teenager, he started learning piano. He started self-teaching, but his family was very poor. They couldn't afford lessons. And then, I don't know, soon after he started self-teaching piano, his older brother started self-teaching piano, and he was really good and progressed really fast. And so my husband was just like, yeah, never mind, I'm out, because I don't want to compete. And so, but he's always wanted to learn guitar. Like really, that's what he wants to do, especially like electric guitar. So he just loved Rock Band, and I loved playing a game with him and actually like something that's kind of in my wheelhouse a little bit, but I was learning bass, okay? He'd do the guitar and I'd do the bass. But in doing so, I experienced something most music teachers don't get to do, which is learn a new notation system from scratch, like our students do. I don't know if any of you have ever played Rock Band or anything like it, like Guitar Hero or something like that. I'm going to show you this song, Sabotage. This is one of the hardest ones I ever learned on bass. So this is the bass on the right, I believe. And I'm just going to show you what it looks like when the game is playing. Okay. Does it have sound? Uh-oh, it doesn't have sound. Okay, I'm going to have it. I wonder if the sound will go through my laptop. I wonder why it doesn't have sound. Maybe the volume's off now?
That's gonna be really loud if it comes.
Yeah, it's gonna blast you, huh?
Just plug your ears in.
Okay, let's see. Just forget. I could not get the rhythm down. Okay, this is not our kind of music usually. I need to watch for a little longer because there's white ones sometimes. Okay, that's the challenge mode. That's the challenge mode, is the white notes. And so once you get good at it, then they take the colors away. And you have to just notice position. And even when I got good at it, anytime they'd throw white notes at me, I just like completely freak out. Like, no, you have to give me my colors, I don't know what I'm doing. So you've got, there's 5 keys.
Oh, okay.
And I'm also strumming. Strumming, it's just a button that goes up and down, okay? And so you have 4 fingers, so you have to shift sometimes. And this one did have some shifting. And so that's part of what made it hard, is I was going like da 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 da, like I don't know. It was very, very tricky. Anyway, it's not as hard as playing a real instrument. After about a year of that, I had the thought that if my husband was spending half an hour every night practicing fake guitar, maybe I should get him a guitar, so I did. And he's practiced that almost every day for 4 years, and he's getting a guitar, so anyway, that's kind of fun. Anyway, my early morning epiphany one day, I woke up, I always have good ideas early in the morning. Sometimes I have bad ideas in the morning too, but my good ones always happen in the early morning. And I was thinking, if color helps me, as an experienced musician who understands music theory and has a good ear, it might also help my students. Like basically, we're throwing them into the white notes from day one, right? So I did some early attempts, and I'm going to kind of show you here what I tried to do. So this is flat. This is what I use. Oh, open another tab. Okay. Let me just find anything. Oh, there it is. Okay. So I searched online to find some music notation software that would allow me to change the colors of the note heads. And I found Flat, and it was a free to sign up, and you can make your first 7 scores for free. And so I did this. I composed some music, and I put my colors into the notes, And it looked like this, basically. And it did not help at all, basically. And in fact, it was even worse because the light colors didn't print very well, and so you couldn't really see them very well. And so I kind of gave up on it for, I don't know, 6 months to a year. I was just like, well, so much for that cool idea. However, let's see, go back to this. Okay, and let's go. Whoa, okay, going back. Okay, so what I eventually did, I started to get a little bit lazy, but I don't know why it's not doing the full screen. Whatever, it's okay. I started to get a little bit lazy, but I had a student who was struggling a little bit. Sorry, let's go back. Oh, now it's going forward. Okay. Oh, here we go. Sometimes technology is great, and sometimes it's really frustrating. Okay. So I had a student who was kind of struggling to understand what they were supposed to look at and stuff like that with note reading. And so I just pulled out some colored pencils. And I used the same color system that I used in flat, but I was just like, hey, can you color your C red? And they did it, and I started, like, it worked really well. And I started doing it with, like, all my students. And I swear, those kids that started on color are all better readers than any of the kids who started before them. Like, it's just almost universally works. And you really don't use color for very long, but it is really, really awesome.
So did you do any C could be red? Every C?
Every
or
C
just
is
one
red.
C?
Every C is red. Okay, so this is the system, and it has to be rainbow order because it needs to make sense. Okay, so C is red, B is orange, B flat or A sharp is yellow-orange, A is yellow, A flat or G sharp is yellow-green, G is green, G flat or F sharp is turquoise, F is light blue, that looks kind of light on there, but okay. E is dark blue, E flat or D sharp is indigo, D is purple, and D flat or C sharp is magenta. Yes.
I'm just gonna throw something out there. I've made something like this for one of my students too, like labeled, and she labels any C this color. Because she's dyslexic. And I researched, how can I help her? Because she's my oldest student and she still struggles sometimes with reading music. So color really helps if you have any dyslexic students.
Yes, and I sometimes wonder if this one student who's been with me forever and has just struggled, what is unfortunate is that she was old enough by the time I came up with this that she thinks it's babyish to color her notes and she doesn't want to do it. And I'm just like, I would help you, I promise. Her little brothers, who are like 3 years younger than her, read great. So I'm like, they let me do it. Okay, anyway, so the basics of how I use it, yes.
So do you color or do you have them color?
That's important. The most important thing is that the student has to be the one to color their note heads. Okay, so a lot of times I'll color the first one. I'll be like, this one's C. Can you color all the C's in your music red? Okay, and I'll describe the C. Don't use it for more than 6 to 12 months at the beginning. So don't let it become a lifelong crutch, you know. And don't use it for every song. I mostly just use it in their lesson book. For supplemental, I don't because I have a lending library, and so a lot of those supplemental things go to festival, and I don't want them colored for festival. Yes?
What happens if they color the wrong note?
They sometimes do. So I'll, when we get there, I'll talk about it. Use only intermittently. So for the first year, while they're learning their notes, you can use it a lot. And then it's only like sometimes, like when they're learning scales, you can pull it out again. Because they've learned the system now, and so if you were coloring, you know, now we have magenta, because we're doing C sharps, because we're in A major or whatever, then they can, you know, pull it out for just one song or one scale or something like that. I don't expect students to memorize the colors, and actually lots of my students don't. They don't remember which one is green. But the point is that they learn the notes, and they do that, and the colors simply help them to see patterns and relationships between the notes. So, I wanted to talk about the different stages of note reading mastery before we get into like how it helps at all the different stages. So stage 1, students can identify a few landmark notes and can recognize whether notes move up or down or stay the same. Depending on the method, they may also be able to read intervallically. That's what I use, an intervallic method. A lot of methods aren't, so they do more like teaching specific notes. And they can still do that even if they don't know all the note names. At this level, hand positions are mostly static, almost 100% static. They're not moving hands. Stage 2, they can now read most notes on the stack. They know what an F looks like. They know what a G looks like. They can identify them by name. They can find them on the keyboard. Hand positions are still mostly static, and they usually only have to think about one note at a time. They can play sharps and flats marked in their music. Stage 3. Students know their notes well enough to be able to begin to move around while playing. So these are the songs that are like slightly shifting almost every measure, right? They can watch for notes in both clefs at the same time, and they can play simple chords. They may begin reading ledger lines. Stage 4, students can play pieces with key signatures. This is a big hurdle. Even if they're good at 1, 2, and 3, they get to 4 and they start to have to like relearn things. What I find, the problem with stage 4 is that you have to know where all of the F's are to know that this one on this space or that line is affected by the F sharp in the key signature. And so even if they sort of know their notes, they might not know it fast enough or well enough to recognize which notes are getting affected by that key signature. Anyway, stage 4, they're able to read at their sight reading level fluidly and confidently. Stage 5, students think in chords. I didn't get to stage 5 till I was an adult. This thinking in chords thing just kind of like, it came late. I try to help my kids think about that more often because it's really helpful. They can recognize chord patterns regardless of whether the chords are inverted, broken, arpeggiated, split between hands, etc. At this point, I would call them confident sight readers, and they will most likely be able to sit down and try anything. Color can be used for a little while as students transition from each stage to the next one. So even if you've dropped it for a year or two, you can bring it back for 3 weeks or something as you're moving up to the next level, or even, a few months here and there. Okay, how to use color in stage 1. I hope you can see the colors here. So this is a song that one of my students colored, just like last week. Students can identify a few landmark notes. So for example, I colored this one and I said, this is middle C. And I color it red. And I said, can you color the other C's red? So my student colored this one and this one. And then I described C. It sits under the treble clef, right in the middle, and above the bass clef, right in this middle area. It has a little line called a ledger line going through it. I use red to color C's, and I always say that. I use red to color C's. Can you color all the C's in your music? Red. And then we'll go, okay, so this one here, this one's a G. G is green. Can you color all the G's in your music? Green. Although, did you know this one's actually also a G? So can you color the left-hand G's green also? And then we'll do like the E's and the D's and the A's. And by the time we've, it takes a few minutes for them to color their music, and some kids are so meticulous. And some are just like, whatever, And some color up the stem, and I don't know, it's just like whatever. So somebody asked, what happens if, for example, they color this one green too? They think it's a G also. And I'll go, oh, that one is actually an A. It's supposed to be yellow. And so I'll just usually color really dark over it with the yellow and do my best to cover up what it really is. And usually they'll remember because it looks different. They're like, oh, that's the one I forgot, right? Okay, students can recognize whether notes move up or down or stay the same. So this is Piano Safari. Who uses that? Yeah. So Piano Safari doesn't even have lines and stuff at the beginning, but you want to have them see we're moving from this purple note to the red note going down. So you can see those relationships. Again, I had a student do this like last week. I was just taking pictures, lots of pictures last week. I was like, I gotta get some pictures. It's easier for students to see the difference between line notes and space notes. This one doesn't have line notes and space notes. And to see changes in note movement when those differences are highlighted using color, even if they don't know what the colors refer to. So I had a student just start, 3-4 weeks ago. And at her first lesson, I had her try to read something really, really simple. And she didn't understand what she was supposed to do at all, even though I had explained. So I had her get the colors out, and I had her color it, and then I had her try again, and she got it exactly right. That's it. That's all it took. She got it exactly right after doing the colors. She's not using colors anymore. Like, well, or at least not every time, but she is noticing what she's supposed to notice, which is amazing. Okay, how to use color in stage 1. Okay, so C. Depending on the method, they may be able to read intervallically. So it's clearer that green and yellow are neighbors, and we'll talk about the color wheel too, about how yellow and green are next to each other on the color wheel, and they're also next to each other on the piano, and also next to each other on the staff. Yellow and red are a little further away. So even though those two notes look like they're close to each other on the staff, we've skipped the orange one in between. So just as steps are neighbors and skips are, skip the note and the color between. Okay. Hand positions are mostly static. This is the method I use. It's really old. I've tried so many different methods, and I still keep coming back to this one. I really, really love it. So the method books I use don't use thumbs on C position or C major pentascale position any more often than any other all white key position in the first year. Like they're all over the place. Every finger on every note. This is good because students don't associate C with finger 1 so strongly, but it does make it hard to connect the note on the page with the movement of the finger and the keys on the keyboard. But color connects all these concepts better. So if you know I have my 2 on the red note on C, then I'm going to have my C or my 3 on the purple note. So you can kind of see the movement a little better and think about it a little better. Okay. Stage 2. Students can read most notes on the staff, can identify them by name, and can find them on the keyboard. At this stage, color can help students see where all the iterations of a note are in different octaves, and they can more easily group these in their minds, which is going to help them when they get to key signatures. So they're not there yet, but it's going to start helping. So this is from Piano Adventures. Most of you probably use that one. Okay. Hand positions are still mostly static, and usually students only have to think about one note at a time. The key, this is a terrible picture, and I was hoping that you'd be able to see the color, but you really cannot. I colored these up here. Color can be used to circle finger numbers, so even though this says 1 and 5, it's not C and G here, where it was before. I'm circling the finger numbers to say, hey, we've moved. This is different, right? So it's really subtle. You just a quick little circle there. And sorry, it can indicate where moves occur and then which fingers need to go onto those new notes. If they're struggling more, you could also just color the E and the C in that chord that they move to. Okay, how to use color in stage 2. C, they can play sharps and flats that are marked in their music. I love it for this because they've already learned their basic colors, the red, yellow, orange, green, blue, purple, right? But now we start introducing these secondary colors like magenta, and that can help them see this isn't a red, this isn't C, because it's got that sharp in front of it. So I sometimes will have a student color all the notes once we start introducing accidentals so they can see the relationships. This method book, these are the ones I use, and this is the second level, the B. It starts having them learn all of the different major pentascales, literally almost all of them, black note, like A flat major, all of them. And they're simple little songs like this, but they're in all these crazy keys. And so I like them to start grouping in their mind, like we have yellow, orange, magenta, purple, and blue when we're in A major, for example. This is where the intermediate colors, oh yeah, that's what I said. You can color all the F sharps turquoise. Because I use the same color for enharmonic notes, regardless of whether they're marked as a sharp or a flat, students can make those connections such as G sharp is the same key on the keyboard as A flat, which, I don't know about you, but all my kids miss A sharps. They see an A and G flats because they're like, well, it can't be that one because that's B flat, right? Well, it can because A sharp is B flats enharmonically. Okay. In stage 3, students know notes well enough to begin to move around while playing and watch for notes in both clefs at the same time. I use color a lot less during this stage, sometimes not at all, if kids are doing fine with it, because by now I hope students are reading pretty well. But if a student is consistently missing a note, like if they keep going for the G here, I'd color it yellow, just be like, hey, that one didn't, watch out, you're in your 6th position, right? But if a student, oh yeah, sorry, I might circle it or color it using a color pencil. But it's just like one note here and there, right? Okay, they can play simple chords. Okay, Lisa turned me on to Snell scale skills, and I love it. I love color for teaching chords because it helps students to get out of panic, 3 notes at once. And they can start to see the relationships between the notes and the chord. I especially love coloring their Snell scale skills books because you can color the chords, and especially in level 2, you can start coloring those inversions of the chords. So you can see we've got red, blue, green for C major, and then it's blue, green, red. We've inverted it, it's the same chord, it's the same 3 colors, same 3 notes. So I just wanted to show what that is. If you don't use Snell, I kind of like them. They do have like 10 levels, and Lisa has my son doing, what, level 6 or 7 right now? Yeah. I really only use the first 2. Maybe I should do more than that, but that's mostly what I do. Stage 3, they begin reading ledger lines. Actually, my students usually learn ledger lines very first, but if you do need to teach some of these notes, a lot of times my kids, by the time they get to this level, they've kind of forgotten their ledger line notes, so we kind of reintroduce what these ones are. Very similar to how you use them at the beginning, but you might only color. This one I'm actually going to show this exact same 2 measure bit in a couple of slides, but I wanted to use it. Stage 4, they can play pieces with key signatures. Even if a student hasn't used color in a couple of years, as key signatures get more difficult, I might bring the color back out to help students identify which notes are affected by the key signature and to make the link between which line a sharp or flat is on in the key signature and what that note looks like on the step. So we kind of talked about this a little bit. Thinking in chords, stage 5. They can recognize chord patterns regardless of whether the chords are inverted. So here I wanted the student to see, we've got a lot of purple and yellow and turquoise. Purple and yellow. And I talk all the time, or sorry, the C sharps are, they're kind of a red herring there, but, and the E. But I always talk about how the shirt needs to match the pants. We gotta have, if we're doing D major in our left hand, we need to be doing D major in our right hand, unless we're playing jazz. And I always say, unless you're doing jazz, in which case you're breaking rules on purpose to make it sound, clashy. But just like sometimes people will wear clashy outfits on purpose. But if you're not doing jazz, it's gonna match, right? We're gonna have it sound good together. And in order to have it sound good together, we've got D's and A's and F sharps in both. Well, we don't have F sharps in the left hand, I guess. Okay. It's also easier to see inverted chords. We kind of talked about this with Snell, where the inversions, we've got the same yellow, magenta, and blue for A major. So it goes up and then back. Okay, so this was me actually a few months ago. I was asked to accompany a clarinetist for a competition, and the piece was a Schumann fantasy piece. And it's really, really beautiful. Pretty hard. It wasn't like impossible for me, but definitely I need to practice hard for a couple of months to get this down. So it's perfect. And for some reason in this, I think it's just because the copy wasn't great, but it was like C, E, 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 C, 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 A. I don't know. I just kept getting the top note here wrong. I would think this one would go to a C, like it would be C, E, C, E, and it wasn't. And then here I thought it would be C, C, A, A, and it wasn't. And so I just kept missing those 2 stupid notes when I was going up to speed. And so I was like, hey, I know what I can do. And I colored them and never missed them again. Because I was like, oh, that's an E, right? It just kind of, that quick little reminder, you don't have to write a letter in your notes that you might miss. Because sometimes if it's just in pencil, I don't look at it. Anyway, so that helped me even. Okay, so here's my favorite thing about color. It teaches me about a student and how they're thinking, because sometimes if they're not understanding, you're like, I don't know what's going on in your head and what connections you're making that are the wrong connections and which connections you're not making that are the right ones. So if I say, can you color all the C's red, and then they also start coloring some D's red, that tells me they aren't noticing whether our note is a line note or a space note. So we can talk about the difference there. If I tell them to color notes and they color the stem instead of the note head, that happened once. And I was like, oh, no, you're looking at the circle part. That's the part that tells you where it is. The line has meaning too, but it isn't which note is this. If they miss some C's, like if I tell them color all your C's, especially if they're in like level 2 or 3, can you color all the C's in your music red, and they only color like the middle C's, but they miss the treble ones, for example. I know they might be glancing too quickly over their music, or they might not be grouping all the notes they should be grouping. Intermediate, I can quickly see if they understand how key signatures work. So if I'm like, okay, what key signature are we in? And they figure out it's G major. Okay, so which note is sharp? That's F sharp. Okay, can you color all the F's turquoise so you can remember that those are F sharps? And if they're not quite getting that, like any of those stages, that can kind of help you understand what they're not getting. And at early and advanced, I can see if they're thinking in chords. Most of mine aren't yet, but we talk about it all the time. And they're getting better. So, yeah. Okay, so here's the question that I get the most often when I tell teachers about this. But isn't that a crutch? But I would almost guarantee you that almost none of you would hesitate to write a G next to a note the student has to name. Or even to write all the letter names into their music when they're like a 2-week-old, or, student. The problem with writing notes in is that the students just look at the writing instead of at the note itself. And so they're still not learning. They're just learning to like look at what you wrote in, right? The colors are right there on the note itself. And so they have to look at it in order to get the hint, right? It tends to be a quicker mnemonic. So it's just, like for me, when I was playing really fast, I see that blue and I'm like, oh yeah, E. Especially when you get used to the system. So it's a more effective one than any others I've used. For instance, I hate Every Good Boy Does Fine. I hate it. Because you have to remember the little saying. Like, is it every good boy? Oh, shoot, what is the Latin of it? How many of you? I don't know, that's one I get a lot. They can't remember the little saying, and then they can't remember, like especially little ones, like kindergarten, first grade, you're like, okay, so what letter does every start with? And they're like, I don't know. And you have to remember the little saying, you have to think about which letter each word starts with, you have to figure out which line, then you have to, boy, and then you have to remember it's a B, and okay, so I'm on B. And then you have to figure out which word this, I don't know, it's just too many thoughts that have to work through your mind before you can actually figure out what note you're on. And it just takes too long, and that's not fluent, right? You have to know what it is instantly to be fluent. No mnemonic is meant to be used forever. Like the others, colors help for a little while, and then the goal is to wean off. So at the beginning, it's every note is colored, and then it's only the starting notes are colored, and then it's only missed notes are colored, and then it's only when you're moving hands, your notes are colored, or whatever. And then maybe only the accidentals or whatever. My favorite thing about this mnemonic is I don't have to take extra time to teach different mnemonics. This one works for everything, right? At all the different levels. If they learned it when they were 5 and they need to, move up when they're 9, they still remember it because it's just colors, right? Why didn't it go? Come on. What do you need? Literally, colored pencils, 12 of them. I will say I usually buy a box of 48 colored pencils because what most colored pencil sets call purple is really pretty indigo. And it's really hard to tell the difference between indigo and that shade of purple. So I bought a big set so that I could get, this one's called Orchid. It's a really good purple. And for some reason this one breaks all the time, so it's really short. But I probably need to get more colored pencils soon. But yeah, you want to have turquoise and stuff too, and the yellow orange and some of the more unusual colors. But that's not very expensive to just buy one set of colored pencils and then you can use it I've been using mine for years. So I do recommend Snell Scale Skills or another scale chord book, something that'll help them to be able to see those patterns in their different keys. Optional, I've never actually done this, but you totally could get a pack of flashcards and have them color their flashcards so that they can practice at home. Usually I use note reading apps for drilling because I don't have to tell people to bring anything to lessons, not lose things, go buy things. It's just easier to just be like, use this link.
What app?
I just got Note Rush, and I do actually kind of like that one. There's another one that I use. Note Rush is really good because it actually listens to the piano. So you're doing it at the keyboard, so you play, it'll show you a C and you play a C and it clicks on to the next one, which is kind of nice. Most of them, they want you to actually like name it, which is helpful too, but yes.
I like Flash Note Derby as well because
Okay.
I can select the specific notes. Sometimes I will
Yes.
select, like in a beginner book, I will select the notes that they're going to learn for the song and do the game first, and then
Perfect, yeah.
then the song.
Flash note Derby, okay.
So you do it at your lesson?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
do my little
I do
app
it
with my
them.
lesson too.
Or they do it while they're waiting for a sibling, but yeah, I do it with them at especially the beginner.
The other one I use, sorry, it's musictheory.net/exercises/note. And I like this one because it's dumb, whatever, but, and you do have to like click on or type on your keyboard or whatever which note it is, but it's really, really customizable, like what you were saying with Flash Note Derby. So you just hit the settings here and you can say which clefs, what range, if you want to do lines only or spaces only, what key signatures. I think you can do solfege if you want, whether there are going to be accidentals. So I think there's a note filter where you can say I only want these ones or something. So I like that for this, but you do have to just like click or name rather than play the piano, which I don't know about you. I have students who are so good at this, and then you take them to the piano to read music and they can't do it. And so I'm like, I just would rather you learn, see that note, do this, you know, but whatever. Okay, does anybody have any more questions or suggestions of what you do that might help? Yes, Lisa.
Sometimes I use erasable colored pencils because then I'll do the colors, but then I'll erase
Take them away.
Yeah.
Perfect. Good idea. Did I see Laura?
I was just like,
Same thing,
I buy
okay.
erasable ones too. I don't know if I can buy a 48 pack though.
I've never seen one, but.
Yeah, mine's not.
You might not be able to get all the different
Yeah.
shades.
I would say I have
just
to
buy
know.
them.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know. Maybe I'll try erasable because that would be really nice to be able to take it off sometimes.
It's mainly helping me if I mess up.
Yeah.
Like when I labeled for, I'm like, oh, it's the wrong color.
Well, that would be great if the student colored it the wrong thing too. Yeah. Did you have your hand up?
Me?
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, so I could do this with any level. I mean, because I've been like, wow, my kids can really use this, and there's different levels of kids. So it's okay to start even if they've been taking piano for a while.
If they'll let you.
Okay.
Like I said,
It might just be better
some
for
teenagers
beginners.
are like, I'm not coloring my notes. It's like, okay, well, then we'll keep struggling, I guess.
Okay, but
Yeah.
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 And then, like, do you have like a little chart up that says like, okay, C is red, you know? Like, do you have a chart that
I
can help
usually
them
write it
see
in their notebook or in their lesson book, like really early on, and then we're using it every day, and I think they're really used to it by
And then
a
they
few
just,
weeks in. Yeah.
you just kind of
Yeah,
start
we
to
do it all
catch
the
up pretty
time.
quick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I use an app to name that note.
Name that note. Okay. Cool. Is that one free?
Is that the last put on?
Is Note Flight,
Group meeting?
or sorry, what were you saying? The
I probably did.
Note
Yes,
Derby
I can
something.
use
Flash
it,
Note
and I
Derby.
like it.
Is it a free app or did you pay for it?
I might have, I've had it for so long,
It's like $5.
but it's only once, it's not every
Yeah.
year.
Like the one I was telling you about, the Note Rush, I think it's like $9. Like it wasn't very much, and I was just like, I wouldn't hesitate to buy a $9
I
sight
use
reading
both
book.
of
Like,
those. I use both of those.
yeah. Okay, so I'll look into the other one. That sounds great.
Add your ideas onto the group me.
Yeah, good idea.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, any of those note reading apps I think are really good to know about because I feel like everyone has its strengths and weaknesses, and so you kind of want to have a little bit of versatility, I guess.
Yeah.
The different ones. Okay. I don't know what time it is. 11:17. Okay. Well, thank you. I am going to link to my slides and also to my handout in the group meeting, so
Thank
you
you.
will have those.
Thank you.
Yeah.